Starting them up the strooms. Let's start them up the strooms. What is up, ladies and gentlemen, twerkers, jerkers, and lurkers, witches, liches, and bitches? It's time once again for another edition of Johnston Blackhorse Does the Drarwringz with your host, me, Johnston Blackhorse, and I am going to do the Drarwringz. Gonna fucking do them all. Oh man, it sucks. Today was all right. I'm just kind of tired now. I just got done doing some home chores for family. Mom and dad are still out, so I went next door and did the dishes, cleaned up a little bit, just so they can come home to like a cleaner place than they left it. Had to soak some dishes, so it took me a while. Also, one of the dogs got loose, so I had to wait around until he came back, so I could put him back on his lead. Because they're pit bulls, even though they're like the sweetest dogs, like fucking when they're around like familiar people, they're just so sweet and like cuddly and whatever, but they're fiercely territorial. So any strangers or like random dogs that come by, they get fucking angry. So I had to wait around, made sure he doesn't like try to go after anybody, because he like the one that got loose, he's a pretty cool dog. He's pretty chill. But he doesn't like strangers or like stray like animals coming by. But I don't know, if you're just some random person coming up, like yeah, he will bark at you. But if you're like in tow with one of the family members, then he's pretty chill. So yeah. Anyway, oh man. Let's check out this video. This is a new video from from Bizarre Bub. I'm subscribed to his channel, and he does like spooky video compilations. And out of all the spooky video compilations, I think Bizarre Bub is right up there with Nuke's Top 5. Nuke's Top 5 has some scary ones every now and then. Fucking some videos like really spook the shit out of me. But Bizarre Bub is like, it's like consistently spooky. I like it. I enjoy them.
On September 8th of 2022, a video was uploaded online that many viewers are finding hard to explain. The video is anything but ordinary. It was posted by Drarwringz, who states that she didn't record the video herself, but instead, someone else had filmed it. The footage was later sent to her and was eventually posted online for everyone else to see. Similar to Izbet's reaction, viewers were left terrified by the footage. It's late at night, somewhere in Peru, when suddenly, two friends encounter something pretty disturbing. This is their video.
¿Qué cosa es esa cosa, Dios mío?
Es una persona.
No, no es una
Es
persona.
una persona doblada.
¿Pero qué es? Ay, madre, no. Está moviéndose raro. Diosito, Dios mío, ¿qué es
This
eso?
shit is like that, just some person doubled over.
Understandably,
That's
the two
weird.
friends kept their distance from whoever or whatever this was. It stands on all fours, while moving its head in a manner that's very unusual. Being paralyzed with fear, both friends stay in place as they continue to observe the strange being. Although it's not clear as to what this was, viewers believe that it might have been a skinwalker or some other supernatural being.
Oh no,
Yet,
Skinwalker.
the lack of info on this video makes it likely that we'll never know for sure what this was. So then, had the two friends actually captured something supernatural, or was something else caught?
Like, to me, it looks like somebody just kind of like bent over backwards doing that, like I don't know what you call that position. Upside down dog. I don't know, but that's what it looks like.
A woman is alone at home when her dogs all of a sudden start acting strange. It was only after looking back at her footage that she realized the reason as to why they were acting odd. Doubtless, the footage has left her disturbed. Now, before showing the video, it's worth noting that the person in this clip has been featured in a previous video before. Laura Combs has been documenting strange activity in her house, and it was just recently that she caught something that has left her even more baffled than before. The following is her video.
What the hell? Meanwhile. Okay. Gotta pay attention. What's going on here? What's happening here? Is there something poking from behind the tree? I don't really see what's going on. Oh. Oh shit, what is that? It's probably a deer.
Strangely enough, around the same time her dogs start to act up, a mysterious figure appears in her backyard. However, there is something very odd about this figure. It moves in such a way that seems to suggest it's something other than a human. Laura believes that it might be a supernatural entity, considering all that's happened in her home and the strange behavior exhibited by her dogs. Now, viewers also agree, but it's not certain if that's the case. Given what's happened, could it be that Laura's dogs were sensing a supernatural presence which happened to be outside? Or might there be another explanation for this odd occurrence? Feel free to let me know what you think down below.
I think it's a deer. Some sort of
There's
fauna.
a podcast on YouTube by the name of Twisted Chamber,
Natural
whose hosts
fauna
consist
from
of
the
two
woods.
people, Natasha and Kat. A few years ago, they received a strange video from a friend of theirs, who still, to this day, has no idea as to what was captured in it. They were deeply unsettled by the footage, and are looking for answers to explain what was captured.
Oh, there's my lovely melody. She says, squish bro. The text per position. Oh. Yeah, that weird, odd position that odd lady was in. I don't think it was paranormal. I think it was just some fucking person tweaking out. Better text. There's nothing. I hope they bring back dinner. I hope they bring back pizza. It's been a while since I've had pizza. Pizza. Ooh, even if it's Papa John's, I would be down with some Pizza Hut because it'd be like ready to eat right there. But I'm okay with like Papa Murphy's because like Papa Murphy's, it's like fresh pizza. They make it, but then they like give it to you unbaked so you can bake it at home. I'm down for some pizza.
Captured. The story goes that the friend was visiting her sick daughter at the hospital late at night when out of nowhere, something downright creepy is caught in the background. They were sure that nobody else was around as they were the only ones on this floor. Needless to say, the video is pretty creepy. This is what they caught.
Oh, hello.
Hello.
Very gorgeous.
Huh? What happened? What? That's it? Fucking.
It is only after a
weak.
couple of seconds that we see a shadow-like figure zoom by.
Okay.
The speed at which they
Bizarre
travel
Bob
seems to be
usually
extremely
has
fast,
some, like,
which
good,
makes it seem very
spooky
uncanny.
video compilations.
But even more strange
But
is that the figure doesn't
I
appear to
have
be
to
running,
admit,
but
these, like,
rather standing
recent
completely
ones
straight
have
while
been
moving at a
getting
speed beyond human
pretty
capacity.
weak.
The friend who caught this doubts that it was one of the nurses or anyone else in general, as they are totally certain that she and her daughter had the floor to themselves. So then, if no one else had been on the floor, who or what was this? There is yet to be a clear answer to this question, but like with most videos, it seems that we won't know for sure until more evidence is given.
It's probably just a member of staff. Jeez.
This
No,
next video was suggested
I'm
by Armando
certain
Caesar, who says he has no idea where
We
this
had the
video
whole
originally
floor
came
to
from.
ourselves.
The source is unknown. However, after doing a bit of research, he was able to gather some info on the footage. According to Armando, the woman in this video is a house cleaner who's been cleaning an extremely old house for years. She usually comes at night to clean the place, and almost every night while being there, she swears that she can hear voices and footsteps from the floor above, even though no one else is inside the house. One night, the cleaning
Getting
lady's
hungry.
friends dare her to clean the
Starting
house,
to get that acid
but
reflux.
with the lights off, and to record whatever happens. Although hesitant at first, she took the dare, thinking it would be a great idea, as she would prove to her friends that she's not crazy and the house is actually haunted. But little did she know that this would be one of the biggest mistakes she's ever made. It's late at night, the lights are off, and the woman is at this place. This is what was captured.
Have I to really cope there? Ah! What?
Some of the reactions are funny.
God. You can't scare me, you bastard. I'm coming. For Alan. To prove that it is top at banister. Hello, Pauline, I'm shitting myself. Sounds like there's something in that bedroom. I'm up to top of stairs. Oh. I can hear a noise in the background, but it's in that cupboard, and it is the airing cupboard. So that's where the boiler is, and it sounds like it's just, someone's just come up at the back of me. F***ing door. Bollocks.
Bollocks.
Now I want to go back down now. Right, I've just shut door. Bed, I'm going to sit on the foot. I daren't move. Do you know if I weren't shitting me sen? Ah! Ah! I want to go down.
Normally, anyone who encounters something like this would flee from the house immediately, but it seems that the cleaning lady was feeling pretty brave that night. However, if it wasn't for the following incident, this video would have been a lot longer. What happens next, before heading downstairs, has left her completely shook. This is what she caught.
Will you open the door for me, please?
What the hell?
I have just seen something. I have just seen something. Right, that's it. I'm off down. I can't take no more. I am off frigging down.
A loud bang comes from one of the rooms, at which the woman points the camera and captures something by the door. It happens real fast, but if you slow the footage and pause at the right time, you can see what appears to be a palish-looking figure peeking at the woman from behind the door. Eerily enough, it seems to have been standing there before even pointing the camera at it. It is at this point that the woman has seen enough and decides to call it a night. Now, with all that's happened in this video, one can't help but think if something paranormal had truly occurred. If so, then the dare she took proved to be successful. Yet not much info was given on the video to prove that it's either real or fake, so it's up to you to come up with your own conclusion. As is often the case with videos like this, what happened that night remains a total mystery. The following video comes from Ryan Godoy, who while using a public restroom, heard strange noises coming from the stall next to his. Curious as to who or what was making those noises, he takes out his phone to record the strange occurrence. He knew for a fact that nobody else was inside the restroom, so it didn't make sense that all of a sudden, somebody was in the stall next to his. He begins to record, and ends up capturing something pretty terrifying. Take a look.
It's a shit ghost! Ah!
Without warning, the stall suddenly slams on its own. Naturally, Ryan runs away from the restroom, fearing that whatever had slammed the door is most likely capable of causing serious harm. Now, unfortunately, the video lacks enough info to determine if it's real or not, but regardless, the sudden movement of the door closing is definitely scary on its own. But as always, what are your thoughts on this? Ghost or something else? More often than not, most videos on the paranormal have very little information or not enough context, but it's usually these that tend to be the creepiest. Therefore, this next video is no exception to this notion. The following footage takes place inside a mine somewhere in Chile. The people in this video appear to be workers for a mining company, and it seems that one of the workers is filming the inside of this mine. They pan the camera all around the space, when suddenly, something very unusual is caught in the
you're
footage.
right, he didn't wash his
With that
hands.
said, be sure to look closely, as you might miss it the first time. Take a look.
Okay, I just got an update. Sis did pay what was due for the storage, so everything is back in the green, everything is square. I just need to fix the Escalade. Headlight parts are still coming in the mail. Let me see where those are at. Where are at those? Tracking the package. It's in Salt Lake. So I assume it's making its way to... Oh, shit. Okay, I assume it's making its way to Moab right now. So I might get an update later tonight saying that the package has arrived in Moab. Unless it's still being sorted and they're not going to deal with it until Monday. Maybe. We'll see. We shall see. But the headlight parts are due to arrive on Tuesday. So I got new headlight bulbs. I got like new bulbs for the running lights. But it looks like the running lights are doing okay. It's like the running daylights will, the running lights or whatever you call them, they'll come on. So I guess the ballasts still work. Like if the ballasts weren't working, I assume none of the lights would come on. So I'm thinking either the headlights are out or I just need new relay switches. But yeah, I got some new relay switches coming in the mail too. Just with all this stuff going on and things still yet to do, it's just weighing heavy on my mind and it makes me feel so tired. But anyway, Bic to Drarwringz. Oh, something spooky happened? Missed it.
There's a small crevice a few feet away, and just outside of it,
Whoa,
there seems
what
to be
is
a
that?
small, shadowy figure resting against the wall.
Oh shit.
It is only seen momentarily before the camera pans away and then pans back to find nothing there.
It's like
Now, there's
fucking
plenty of theories as to what this could have been, but the
weird-
most popular
weird
one
dude
seems
just
to be the
sitting there.
belief that this might have been a creature known as a duende, an elf-like entity with sinister intentions. Yet, like most theories, it is not a fact, but simply a belief. So, whatever this was is currently unknown. But of course, you be the judge as to whether or not something paranormal was captured. What exactly was caught in this video?
a shadow creature, a
In
shadow
this
man
next
taking a
video,
shit.
a security guard is working the night shift at an empty facility when something extremely creepy is caught on camera. The guard
There's
in
a
this video
shadow
is known
shit
as Tim
ghost.
Saver, and he's been working the night shift at a place that he believes is haunted. From strange noises that seemingly come out of nowhere, to the odd feeling that someone else is inside the building, Tim has plenty of reasons to explain why he films during his shift. Now, there have been plenty of unexplainable things caught on camera, but a particular video has left many viewers unsettled. In this video, Tim hears a noise coming from a space near the ceiling. He proceeds to check out the noise, but when he gets there, something is captured that Tim hadn't noticed until looking back at the footage. When he saw what was caught, he was left speechless. This is what he captured.
Oh yeah, we saw this on the friggin' other video. Or I already saw this in another video somewhere. I don't know. I've been watching numerous videos today. Paranormal videos. It's like there's a little miniature Egyptian bust right there. And I guess a hand gets placed on it. But then where's the hand coming from? Because there's nobody back there. Yeah, there's a hand on it. Like, who the fuck's hand is that?
After zooming in and brightening the footage, we can see what appears to be a hand grasping at an object inside the space.
Looks
After
like
a few
a
seconds, it
Cleopatra
then disappears.
bust.
Tim is sure that what he captured is something paranormal. However, some viewers believe that it might have been someone hiding inside the building. Nevertheless, the footage remains a mystery. But it seems that Tim will soon be posting more to explain this video. For now, the question remains, who or what was captured? If you caught something creepy on camera,
man.
or if there's any ghost videos you'd like me to check out and include in the next compilation, you can send them over to scaryvideos444@gmail.com. That being said, let's get back to the video. This last video comes from someone who works the night shift at a department store inside a mall. For some reason, almost every night, strange noises are heard inside the store. Although the person who works there isn't sure what exactly is going on, a video of theirs has left viewers wondering if the store might be dealing with something paranormal. It's close to midnight, the employee is all alone, and the following is caught on camera. This is what was captured.
What's going on, guys? Making a video. It's been a couple days since I made the last one. I'm feeling good. That was...
What's going on, guys? It's been a while since I made a video. What's going on, guys?
It's been a couple days since I made the last one. I'm feeling good.
I find his voice quite humorous.
What's going on, guys? Making a...
What's going on, guys? I'm making a video. Blah blah blah. God, Blackhorse is such a fucking dick. I know. I know.
Captured.
What's going on, guys? Making a video. It's been a couple days since I made the last one. I'm feeling good. That was... Yo!
Yo!
Hello?
Hey, what's going on over there? Over here, over there. Over there, over here. Hey, yo!
Out of nowhere, a small silhouette of what appears to be a child stands right behind the employee.
What
Now,
the
because
shit?
the video ends abruptly, it's hard to be sure if what was caught is actual paranormal evidence. But whether paranormal or not, there's no doubting that the sudden appearance of the small figure is creepy alone. As always, what are your thoughts on this? Paranormal or not? Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Until next time.
Could have been a mannequin, I guess. Might be a setup. Or a prank. Okay. Oh, fucking shit. Oh, man, it's starting to hit me. Let's see what to put on next. Oh. Okay, let's try out that Australian legendary tales from Australia. Australia. Legendary Australian legendary tales. Okay.
Greetings and bienvenue, midnight crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Australian Legendary Tales by K. Langlo Parker. Preface. A neighbor of mine exclaimed, when I mentioned that I proposed making a small collection of the folklore legends of the tribe of Aboriginals I knew so well living on this station, but have the Aboriginals any legends? Thus showing that people may live in a country and yet know little of the Aboriginal inhabitants. And though there are probably many who do know these particular legends, yet I think that this is the first attempt that has been made to collect the tales of any particular tribe and publish them alone. At all events, I know that no attempt has been made previously as far as the folklore of the Noongahburras is concerned. Therefore, on the authority of Professor Max Muller, that folklore of any country is worth collecting, I am emboldened to offer my small attempt at a collection to the public. There are probably many who, knowing these legends, would not think them worth recording. But, on the other hand, I hope there are many who think, as I do, that we should try, while there is yet time, to gather all the information possible of a race fast dying out, and the origin of which is so obscure. I cannot affect to think that these little legends will do much to remove that obscurity, but undoubtedly a scientific and patient study of the folklore throughout Australia would greatly assist thereto. I, alas, am but an amateur moved to my work by interest in the subject, and in the Aboriginals, of whom I have had some experience. The time is coming when it will be impossible to make even such a collection as this, for the old Aboriginals are quickly dying out, and the young ones will probably think it beneath the dignity of their so-called civilization even to remember such old women's stories. Those who have themselves attempted the study of an unknown folklore will be able to appreciate the difficulties a student has to surmount before he can even induce those to talk who have the knowledge he desires. In this, as in so much else, those who are ready to be garrulous know little. I have confined this little book to the legends of the Naren tribe, known among themselves as Noongahburras. It is astonishing to find, within comparatively short distances, a diversity of language and custom. You may even find the same word in different tribes bearing a totally different meaning. Many words, too, have been introduced which the Aboriginals think are English, and the English think are native. Such, for example, as pickaninny, and, as far as these outside blacks are concerned, boomerang is regarded as English, their local word being burren, yet 9 out of 10 people whom you meet think both are local native words. Though I have written my little book in the interests of folklore, I hope it will gain the attention of, and have some interest for, children of Australian children, because they will find stories of old friends among the bush birds, and of English children, because I hope that they will be glad to make new friends, and so establish a free trade between the Australian and English nurseries, wingless and laughing birds, in exchange for fairy godmothers, and princes in disguise. I must also acknowledge my great indebtedness to the blacks, who, when once they understood what I wanted to know, were most ready to repeat to me the legends, repeating with the utmost patience, time after time, not only the legends, but the names, that I might manage to spell them so as to be understood when repeated. In particular, I should like to mention my indebtedness to Peter Hippie, king of the Noongahburras, and to Epitha, Mata, Baraguri, and Beemoney. I have dedicated my booklet to Peter Hippie in grateful recognition of his long and faithful service to myself and my husband, which is extended, with few intervals, over a period of 20 years. He, too, is probably the last king of the Noongahburras, who are fast dying out, and soon their weapons, bartered by them for tobacco or whiskey, alone will prove that they ever existed. It seemed to me a pity that some attempt should not be made to collect the folklore of the quickly disappearing tribe of folklore embody, probably, the thoughts, fancies, and beliefs of the genuine Aboriginal race, and which, as such, deserves to be, indeed, as Max Muller says, might be and ought to be, collected in every part of the world. The legends were told to me by the Aboriginals themselves, some of whom remember the coming of Michelin, as they call Major Mitchell, the explorer of these back creeks. The old blacks laugh now when they tell you how frightened their mothers were of the first wheel tracks they saw. They would not let the children tread on them, but carefully lifted them over, lest their feet should break out in sores, as they were supposed to do if they trod on a snake's track. But with all their fear, little did they realize that the coming of Michelin was the beginning of their end, or
there's like a suspicion sort of like that. It's got nothing to do with like snake trails or whatever. It's got to do with like these velvet ants. If you look them up, velvet ants come in like an array of primary colors, be it like yellow, red, blue, and I think there's a violet one. I think there's a purple one. I can't remember, but the red velvet ant in particular, our superstition about it is if you step on a red velvet ant, like you'll get a nosebleed that night or the next day. And as a kid, like I've heard this superstition, and when I came across like a red velvet ant, I wanted to see if it were true. So I stepped on it, I crushed it, and that night when I was asleep, I woke up and like my nose like started bleeding. It's like I was like oh my gosh, it's true. It's not a superstition, it actually happened. And so let's say like a couple of years later, I come across another red velvet ant, and I'm thinking like, what are the odds? You know, like the first time, like it was probably just fucking a coincidence. So I'm gonna test out this superstition again, and if nothing happens, you know, like that's all it'll be. It'll be a superstition. So I stepped on another red velvet ant, and fucking lo and behold, like that night I break out into another nosebleed. And like thinking like, no, it can't be true. Like how do those two things correlate? It can't, because like it's not like by just stepping on an insect somehow like it causes your nose to bleed. Like there's no correlation. Like it's got to be some superstition or just some far out like coincidence. And so I get over that nosebleed, and then years later, like I come across the third red velvet ant, and I'm thinking like, okay, well, like the last two times I stepped on a red velvet ant, I had a nosebleed. Like, what are the chances it'll happen like a third time? I did it. I stepped on it, and like fucking the next day, I had a fucking nosebleed, and it's just like, what are the odds? What are the chances? You know, like if I come across another red velvet ant, I probably won't fuck with it because I don't want to deal with another nosebleed. It's like, yeah, it's just like a nosebleed, but you know, like they suck. And if I can avoid one, I'm going to do it. And like the coincidence is just like way too much. Like what is the saying? Like one time lucky, or like one time is chance, twice is coincidence, three or more times it's like there's something going on. I don't know how I don't know if that's how the saying goes. I doubt that's how the saying goes. It's just it goes along those lines. Anyway. Melody saying you brute. For me, like stepping on red velvet ants. But let me show you a picture of them. Okay, here we go. Here is a red velvet ant. And they come in different colors. Oh, there's an orange one. I know they come in yellow. I've seen yellow ones. And I've seen blue ones. Anyway, I just thought that was just something interesting to share. Oh, it's fuzzy. Yeah, it is. I've never been bitten by a velvet ant. I don't know if their venom would be more potent or not. But they're kind of big and floofy. They're just, it's like they're little like bumblebee ants. They're silly.
That 50 years afterwards, from the remnant of their once numerous tribe, would be collected the legends they told in those days to their pickaninnies round their campfires, and those legends used to make a Christmas booklet for the children of their white supplanters. I can only hope that the white children will be as ready to listen to these stories as were, and indeed are, the little pickaninnies, and thus the sale of this booklet be such as to enable me to add frocks and tobacco when I give their Christmas dinner, as is my yearly custom, to the remnant of the Noongaburras. Introduction. Australia makes an appeal to the fancy which is all its own. When courts entered Mexico, in the most romantic moment of history, it was as if men had found their way to a new planet. So strange, so long hidden from Europe was all that they beheld. Still they found kings, nobles, peasants, palaces, temples, a great organized society, fauna and flora not so very different from what they had left behind in Spain. In Australia all was novel, and, while seeming fresh, was inestimably old. The vegetation differs from ours. The monotonous gray gum trees did not resemble our varied forests, but were antique, melancholy, featureless, like their own continent of rare hills, infrequent streams and interminable deserts, concealing nothing within their waste, yet promising a secret. The birds and beasts, kangaroo, platypus, emu, are ancient types, rough grotesques of nature, sketching as a child draws. The natives were a race without a history, far more antique than Egypt, nearer the beginnings than any other people. Their weapons are the most primitive. Those of the extinct Tasmanians were actually Paleolithic. The soil holds no pottery, the cave walls no pictures drawn by men more advanced, the sea hides no ruined palaces, no cities are buried in the plains, there is not a trace of inscriptions or of agriculture. The burying places contain relics of men perhaps even lower than the existing tribes. Nothing attests the presence in any age of men more cultivated. Perhaps myriads of years have gone by since the Delta, or the lands beside Euphrates and Tigris were as blank of human modification as was the whole Australian continent. The manners and rites of the natives were far the most archaic of all with which we are acquainted. Temples they had none, no images of gods, no altars of sacrifice, scarce any memorials of the dead. Their worship at best was offered in hymns to some vague, half-forgotten deity, or first maker of things, a god decrepit from age or all but careless of his children. Spirits were known and feared, but scarcely defined or described. Sympathetic magic, and perhaps a little hypnotism, were all their science. Kings and nations they knew not, they were wanderers, houseless and homeless. Custom was king, yet custom was tenacious, irresistible, and as complex in minute details as the etiquette of Spanish kings, or the ritual of the flames of Rome. The archaic intricacies and taboos of the customs and regulations of marriage might puzzle a mathematician, and may, when unraveled, explain the less complicated prohibitions of a totemism less antique. The people themselves in their struggle for existence had developed great ingenuities. They had the boomerang and the wheat, but not the bow, the throwing stick, but not, of course, the sword, the message stick, but no hieroglyphs, and their art was almost purely decorative, in geometrical patterns, not representative. They deemed themselves akin to all nature, and called cousins with rain and smoke, with clouds and sky, as well as with beast and trees. They were adroit hunters, skilled trackers, born sportsmen, they now ride well, and, for savages, play cricket fairly. But, being invaded by the practical emigrant or the careless convict, the natives were not studied when in their prime, and science began to examine them almost too late. We have the works of Sir George Grey, the too brief pamphlet of Mr. Gideon Lang, the more learned laborers of Messrs. Fisson and Howitt, and the collections of Mr. Smythe. The mysteries bore of the natives, the initiatory rites, a little of the magic, a great deal of the social customs are known to us, and we have fragments of the myths. But, till Mrs. Langloh Parker wrote this book, we had but few of the stories which Australian natives tell by the campfire or in the gum tree shade. These, for the most part, are kinder marching, though they include many etiological myths, explanatory of the markings and habits of animals, the origin of constellations, and so forth. They are a savage edition of the Metamorphoses, and few unbiased students now doubt that the Metamorphoses are a very late and very artificial version of traditional tales as savage in origin as those of the Noongahburrah. I have read Mrs. Parker's collection with very great interest, with human pleasure, merely for the story's sake. Children will find here the Jungle Book, never before printed, of black little boys and girls. The sympathy with and knowledge of beast life and bird life are worthy of Mr. Kipling, and the grotesque names are just what children like. Dynwan and Goomble should take their place with Rikki Tikki and Mr. Kipling's other delightful creatures. But there is here no Mowgli, set apart in the jungle as a man. Man, bird, and beast.
It's just now dawning on me. This is an actual book. This is the introduction, and it looks like we're going through chapters that are on. I was expecting like 4chan, like someone like green text stories or like recent accounts, but no, this is like just a fucking published book of like Australian Aboriginal legends and myths and whatever. Is not what I thought it was, because looking at the title, I see like 4chan and X. So I was thinking like, oh, Outback, spooky paranormal Outback stories posted on the paranormal board of 4chan. All right, let's go. And no, it's a fucking book. It's a motherfucking book. That's why it's like over 2 hours long. They just narrated the whole book. But I didn't come here for a book. I came here for like short, spooky stories of like first-hand accounts, supposed first-hand accounts, and whatever. I ain't come here for no book. All right, let's find another one. Okay, local legends. Let's get it.
Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, X. Tell me about your local legends. Your small town stories that have never really garnered much attention. Where I grew up, there was this place my friends and I nicknamed Murder Mountain. The rumor was that a man was stabbed to death there in the mid-60s, and that he still haunts the location. It's in a decently wooded area on a rocky hill by some power lines and a part of a dump, I think. The only way we got there when we were kids was by wading through a small swamp, as there was thick woods surrounding it, and suburbs circling that. We used to go at night and try to see the ghost. Unfortunately, we never saw his apparition. But we managed to hear things. Eventually, we made it a habit to be completely silent there for 10 to 20 minutes in the hopes he'd contact us. Some nights we would hear a figure wading through the brooks, or footsteps by the edge of the woodline. Once, my friend and I heard faint whispering from the tall grass and cattails, like somebody was muttering to themselves. But nothing too unusual ever happened, and it's been years since I've been back there. What about you, X?
Oh, I can go all day, dude. My part of the city has a hill my friends always called Rat Mountain. Well, not literally, because we're not English speaking, but if you translate Ka Opa, you'll get Rat Mountain, because one older kid messed around in the tunnels under it and a rat bit him, causing him to get 40 anti-rabies shots into the stomach or something like that. As kids we had a legend surrounding that hill. It went like this. There are tunnels under Rat Mountain which connect to tunnels under our school, under the city council building and under the railway station. And we always made up creepy stories to go along with that legend, like how there's a doll living in there that will choke you, or like the huge rat that bit that older kid was actually a baby rat, and the adult rats in those tunnels are large as dogs, etc. But then it turned out the tunnels weren't a made-up legend. The Soviets actually dug interconnecting tunnels under our town when preparing for the nuclear war way back when. The tunnel under the Rat Mountain where our older buddy was bitten led to a blocked-off bomb shelter for the Communist Party officials, for example. After our country gained its independence, which happened when I was around 2 or 3 years of age, the new authorities basically blocked every tunnel off with brick and mortar and concrete and metal grates. But they were there on the historic maps and such. Wonder if a creepy doll actually lived there.
I come from a small backwoods in rural Appalachia, and there's a persistent myth in the tiny community I live in from the early 1800s. A lot of the variations I've heard get kind of rambly, but I'll try and simplify it via green text. Farmer purchases a black goat from a weird out-of-towner. Farmer starts having nightmares and can't sleep. One night, the farmer is awoken in the early hours of the morning by the sound of giggling and muffled chanting coming from the barn the goat stayed in. He checks the barn and finds numerous lit candles, but nothing. He extinguishes the candles and goes back to bed, his shotgun by his side. In the morning, every other animal on his farm is brutally slaughtered and defiled. Distraught, he goes to stay in town at the local saloon for a few days. People spot a naked, beautiful woman sneaking into his room, assume he's just got a date. Next day, the farmer is missing. People say the farmer was taken by the daughter of Satan, and the goat was the daughter, something along those lines. I've had this myth told to me to explain why goats always act really weird in this region. My grandpa owned a goat, and that thing was pure evil. I remember vividly seeing it chase down a rabbit and stomp its skull in before tearing it apart with its horns, not even to eat it. There's another one my great-uncle used to tell me about, a witch who had a child with a monster he always referred to as a Jabberwock. He swears up and down it's not just a myth he created, but unlike the story of the farmer and the black goat, I've never been able to find anyone else in the community who knows the story except him.
In the 2000s, my school was very big on all sorts of legends and stories or rituals which seem to share a few key themes, despite being separate stories. I will provide the few I remember. Though it seems like whoever made all those little tales up was in the school long before my time, and these things spread from older kids to younger kids in an unending game of telephone. By the time I got to hear them, most of the lore was lost. Like, none who told me any of these stories knew what replaced or exchanged meant exactly, or who they were, or what or where the place is. Some important info. In our school we received grades for our class work into little notepads called diary, which we then had to bring home and show our parents, and our parents needed to put their signature next to the grade to show that they have seen the grade their kid received. I don't think you have that in America, so I'm clarifying. With that in mind, here's the first little legend. If you ever receive a bad grade in your thing and you don't want to show it to your parents, you can leave your pen on your desk as you are leaving class. If nobody, like the cleaning lady, spots and moves your pen overnight, it will be replaced by another pen that will be the same as the original one, but if you write with it, your handwriting will become just like that of your mother. So you can sign for the grade instead of your mom. Then you must break that pen and throw it away, because if you keep it, it will start staining your hands and your pen holder and your bag with ink that can't be washed off easily. If you do something bad in school and a teacher calls your parents, you can hide under the desk after class. When everyone including the teacher leaves and turns all the lights off, you will be replaced and the other you will go home to get punished for your misdeed. Next morning the replacement will come to school to switch places with you again before class. But you can only safely do this if the next day is a school day. One girl did this during Friday, meaning the next day was Saturday and thus not a school day, and she was never switched back. Nobody noticed at first, but then the thing that replaced her broke apart in class and thus everyone knew she was the replacement. Sometimes you can accidentally open the classroom door in a way that will replace the classroom you are entering.
Weird.
You will know that this is the case if none of the things discussed during the lesson will be familiar or cohesive to you. Like, if the teacher begins teaching the class about sinking in a wet puddle, or wearing wet clothes while your hair is wet, instead of normal things like math or spelling, you know you screwed up and entered a replaced classroom. You should never show them your confusion or fear, just wait until the lesson ends and walk out of the classroom. You will be switched again, for normal this time. If you sit improperly in class with your elbow on the table and your chin on your hand, and your hand or forearm falls asleep, they can be replaced without your consent. You will be able to use that hand normally, but it will always feel cold and it will be wet all the time, making all your sleeves and gloves and stuff wet, and you should never write with it. If all the tables in the lunchroom are full and enough kids have nowhere to sit down and eat, they will be led to the third floor of the school and sat in a classroom that's usually replaced by the geography classroom. It's a huge moldy stinky room that has a very long table that everyone can sit around. It serves wet food like milk noodles and soggy bread and wet over-boiled hot dogs, so you better get a place in the normal. There was a kid who sawed all of his fingers off on his right hand in a metal shop. The teacher got so scared, he replaced his hand and begged the kid to never tell anyone he did so. The kid agreed and lived the rest of his life with replaced fingers. It was all good, but he learned to write with his left hand, because what his right hand wrote made him scared and almost made him schizophrenic. Once a bunch of kids played a prank on the nurse and replaced her. That very same day a kid got hurt really badly, and had to be brought to the nurse's office. He was bleeding profusely and needed bandaging, but the nurse only stood there and asked him questions like, "What's your name? What's your dad's name? What's your dog's name? Name all your neighbors by full name. What are the full names of your teachers? What are the names of your class kids? What's the president's full name? What are the full names of popular people you like? What are the names of generals of the army that you know of?" And they had to call him an ambulance, because that was all the help he received. Look into a polished surface for a long time, and your eyes get replaced. That will make you see what people are made of if you stare long enough. Like, if you look at someone's face for a long time with your replaced eyes, you will see all the nasty shit it's made out of, like layers of wet skin, blood, muscle, and stuff that isn't really there, like the nose is actually formed from entrails, and the eyes are white boiled eggs with black bugs sitting on them are the pupils, etc. There was a psycho kid who, after receiving a bad mark, went into full-blown tard rage, threw a chair at the teacher, cussed at her, kicked her in the stomach or bit her in the leg. Older kids and the old security guy were called into the class. They grabbed the kid and started to push him into the classroom floor. They covered him with a big blanket and started stomping on him until the blanket became completely flat on the floor, as if the kid got pushed through the floorboards or became liquid. And when that same kid came back to school next morning, he didn't remember acting out and was always a good proper kid since then. People made fun of his rage moment, and he always went like, "Quit making up stuff about me, I never did those things." Every month 2 kids get randomly chosen to help the cooks in the kitchen. The cooks mostly ask the kids to help with the dishes or carry garbage to the dump, but if it's a very busy day you might get asked to empty a huge pot all the noodles are cooked in for the whole school. If you drain all the murky water, there will be a noodle face at the bottom of the pot. It will tell you a lie and a truth, and you won't know which is which until one of the things comes true and the other doesn't. An example of what the face would say is, if you go out next night all alone, you will find a wad of cash or a guy who will find and kill you. If you leave your things unattended for a long time in the classroom, like during a long period or some school gathering or something, some of those unattended things might get replaced. You can spot this. Like if a pen now weighs as much as a book, or a book is all wet and weighs like a feather. You should never take the replaced things to your home, even if they are important. A kid once took a replaced thing because it was his favorite notebook, and next night it disappeared and his pet dog disappeared with it. A janitor found that dog stuffed between the bathroom wall and some pipes in our school the next morning, terribly mangled and contorted, literally stuffed into a space 10 times too small for it. That's how they eat. And they don't just eat pets. We had a railroad running close to our school. There was a place known to every kid in my age group as the place where Jaeger died. Apparently a kid named Jaeger, whose shoes were changed in the gym class changing room, but he didn't notice and wore them when he went home. When he was walking across the rails, the replaced shoes stuck to the metal of the rails, and so did his feet. He cried and screamed and his dad and a few passers-by ran to him and tried to tear him off of the rails, but they couldn't. And they couldn't take his shoes off. So they just covered him with a blanket and stepped away as a train ran him over and turned him into red paste.
Oh, fuck. Where are these legends coming from? Like, what locale is this? It just says school diary. This is some freaking far out local legends. Like, where are these legends located, man? This shit is crazy.
The best part of this tale is that it was told about an actual kid that went to our school, alive and well, everyone knew him. He was 2 years older than my class and me. Never died on the tracks.
Huh. I'm going to open up another Canada Dry bold ginger ale. So good. I'm gonna get ginger drunk. Maybe this will wake me up or make me a little more loopy. Fucking fly. Bitch ass motherfucker, pussy clown, dildo piece of shit. Coming to my house, you son of a bitch. Land where I can fucking kill you. I don't see him anywhere. Anyway.
This one's not an original thing by a long shot, but I grew up in the North Carolina Piedmont and would always hear stories about the Devil's Tramping Ground. For anybody on Slack,
the Devil's Tramping Ground. Oh, yep. There it is. They got an image of it. The Devil's Tramping Ground. I guess like nothing grows here, and I guess the actual devil comes by to just like fucking walk around in circles in this little area. Pretty spooky.
/x/who lives under a rock. It's this circular area out in the middle of the woods that is unable to grow any vegetation, even after new soil was poured and healthy saplings were planted. That isn't much in terms of the paranormal, but purportedly if anything is left inside the circle overnight it'll be moved out of it by morning. I remember stories about people camping inside it, going to sleep, and waking up with their entire site moved outside the edge of the grounds. My favorite story though has to be this one where a kid had a birthday party there, and they left all of their trash and stuff behind. Come morning, it was all still lying there. I like to imagine the devil just got tired of all those people messing with his place that he just gave up trying to clean it LMAO. I've got a few more stories to share, if I can remember to actually post them. Pick rel, it's the grounds. Bit bigger than how it looks in the picture.
I have a story involving a small, local urban legend about animal sacrifice. My family didn't celebrate Halloween because we were Jehovah's Witnesses, but I distinctly remember one Halloween where my dad sat me down and
Oh, man, being a Jehovah's Witness has gotta fucking suck. You guys don't fucking celebrate Halloween? Jeez. What a fucking shitty ass cult to be a part of. Man, all the suffering you have to do, and for what? Just to be part of this wacky fringe group, wacky religious fringe group? That's fucking crazy. Don't celebrate Halloween because it's a fucking sin. You get the fuck out of here, man. You and your watchtower. For those who don't know, like Jehovah's Witnesses, their missionaries hand out these little pamphlets called watchtowers, or watchtower. It's like a little pamphlet filled with like their beliefs and prayers and whatever. It's sort of like a little a religious zine, I guess you can call it. Yeah, anyway. You and your fucking watchtower, get the fuck out of here. You no trick-or-treating motherfuckers. Oh, Melody says, speaking of Halloween, I have a nice idea for that. Ooh. Yeah. Look forward to hearing it. Probably going to be a pretty interesting Halloween themed commish. Nice. Anyway, back to this. Weak-ass Jehovah's Witness
told me about why he
motherfucker.
personally doesn't. It wasn't because of the Watchtower, the governing body of the Jehovah's Witnesses, but because of an event that happened to him before he converted and met my mom, and it's become the local ghost story of the town I grew up in. I'll green text the story from my memory of it. A dad, 14 years old. He attending a party at a friend's house in this semi-rural slice of suburbia. It's near midnight. Guy hosting the party calls people into the living room. He brings out a chicken. Everyone kinda lol what's at it, not knowing where he's going with this. Chicken is way too calm, as my dad put it, not squirming at all. Guy tells everyone to turn off any lights and gather around. Lights a few candles. Tells them all that he's going to summon a devil. Few people shuffle out of the party, everyone else being edgy, mostly atheist teens stay behind. He pulls a pocket knife out of his pocket. Cuts into the chicken's neck while stammering out some probably misspoken Latin. Dad didn't know what language he was speaking and said it was speaking in tongues, but I'm 90% sure given the context it was Latin. Chicken again remains perfectly still, standing on the coffee table. Few girls throw up and everyone starts GTFOing. Dad stays, transfixed. Tells me as he sees the chicken's head fall off, he sees the devil in the blood spurts and in the chicken's eyes. Firmly shaken, he GTFOs himself and never celebrates Halloween again. I've seen other variations about this legend from my dad's family and from some old-timers I managed to track down and interview, but most agree that it was some kind of ritual, and most of them are very touchy about the subject of Halloween. Hell of a thing to see at 14. I wondered if they drugged the chicken to keep it calm like that. How do you feel about Halloween now, if you don't mind me asking? I have a chicken sacrifice story, but it's pretty different. Early 1900s mountain community. Relative is working in a field and starts feeling sick. Breaks out in boils. Oh shit, shingles.jpg. The old saying was that if the shingles wrapped all the way around your body, that was it for you. Family freaking out. Relative was only in his early teens. Go to an old wise woman who said to use chicken blood from old black hen. Relative disrobes and they decapitate the chicken. He gets drenched. Has to stay like for 2 weeks while he recovers. He lived into 90s.
I was raised in the San Bernardino Mountains and was always told never to stay out after dark, and if I happened to be out, run home.
It's pronounced San Bernardino. Just kidding. I'm fucking around. It's San Bernardino. But I like to call it San Bernardino. Because I'm a fucking loon.
As a kid, I was told never to go near bonfires or hang out with older teenagers. There was an abandoned house a few houses down, and as kids we would throw rocks at it, and was always told the classic someone was murdered in there and never to go in there. At night you would sometimes hear noises, but it was usually other kids partying and getting drunk/high. I remember one night hanging out at my neighbor's house that lived through the forest, and we had flashlights that our friends' moms would give us to be safe. This was before 9/11. I swear I was being chased by a monster, but I was also around 6 years old. Masonic and pagan culture is kind of still popular up there, but this was also in the late 90s. There's so many spooky things that happened, and I feel like I've retained false memories.
I don't know if this would classify as a local legend. If anything, it's more of a family story, but might as well post it. The story begins with my great-great-grandma, a German immigrant to America. She didn't speak much English, and stuck out like a sore thumb in the city she had moved to in Louisiana, but eventually met Rainer, another German American who spoke fluent English and fluent German. The two moved away from Louisiana to live in Texas, where Rainer owned a significant property and made a fortune from cattle trading. She described Rainer as being distant, but caring towards her. The two were never romantically involved, even though they had married. One night my great-great-grandma was awoken by a heated argument downstairs. Rainer was shouting about something that she couldn't hear as it was muffled through the floorboards. She slipped out of her room and stood by the stairwell to try and listen in. Rainer was shouting on and on about taxation and how he wasn't being treated fairly by his brotherhood. My great-great-grandma noticed as well that he'd pause, as if someone else were talking, and then respond, but she couldn't hear another voice at all. She choked it up to bad hearing and tried to go back to bed. In the morning, Rainer was missing, and it wouldn't be almost until midnight that he returned, visibly exhausted and in a suit she'd never seen him wear before. From what I remember of her description of it, it was a suit of red velvet, and it was very weirdly buttoned, seemingly buttoning up at the sides instead of the front. When she asked where he had been, Rainer told her that it was just a meeting, and when she inquired about the argument, he tensed up and glared at her. She didn't push it any further, and the two went to bed after a silent dinner. She was awoken again that night by the sound of an argument, and tried to go back to sleep until she heard the sound of something being thrown against a wall and shattering. She got out of bed as quickly as she could and rushed downstairs to see what the commotion was. Rainer was fighting with this solid black figure, and was quite visibly losing. Shattered plates and glass were strewn about the room, and Rainer was almost drenched in his own blood. My great-great...
Give me a second. I'll be right back. Oh. No. Spoiled those doggos. I guess it was nothing. Thought I heard somebody driving up.
great-grandma screamed seeing this and rushed past the two outside, calling for help. She ran barefoot to the nearest town, which was a decent few miles away, and told the police that her home was being invaded by some stranger. The police barely understood her, as her English was still shit, but they at least managed to figure out where she had lived and that there was trouble. When they got back, however, the house was engulfed in flames. Green flames in particular, according to every account I've heard from my family members. The police attempted to put the fire out, but water did nothing, and the house was reduced to a smoldering ruin. My grandma stayed at the local saloon for a few days, before meeting my great-great-grandpa. There's an argument in my family about what the police found in the remains of Riener's home. Some say that he had a copy of the Satanic Bible, while the others say that they found some weird cryptid skeleton.
Mrs. Duncan's house. All the bad kids went to
Crazy.
Mrs. Duncan's house. It was a real, rundown house in part of the ghetto on one of the roads outside of our neighborhood. Kids would sleep on the cold, rotting floors, get fed once a day, forced to do chores, and pick nails out of the wood with their fingers. Mrs. Duncan was apparently a witch. After I wrote with markers on the wall one day, my dad out me in the car and threatened to take me there. My brother and sister were crying to let me stay, but he drove off anyways, then turned around right before we got there. I still pass it sometimes, but it turns out it's just a rundown crack house. I don't know much about it, or at least don't remember much, but I remember walking by where it happened as a child and being extremely afraid one time for no reason, since it's somewhere I would pass all the time and it was broad daylight. Anyway, my school had this legend of the dead Wanda, who died in a treehouse that either fell down or burned down, or both, I don't remember. Funny thing is, later the school actually built a treehouse where it supposedly happened. It stuck with me because, like I said, I walked by the place it supposedly happened one time, like I did thousands of times, and for no reason felt very uneasy and looked at the ground like I could see the remains of the destroyed treehouse that was before the new one was built. My school used to be a convent of nuns or whatever it's called, and the legend is from that time. Likely forgotten by now, since it wasn't talked about as much as generic legends like Bloody Mary. I only heard about it a couple of times, from upperclassmen.
From Central Appalachia, so I know a good amount. Grow up hearing about a haunted rock from my grandma. Don't live in the area where it was, so don't know much about it other than she won't go back. Years later find out the details. Mid-1800s, this lady kills her whole family to run off with some guy. Shoots husband. He crawls onto a rock and bleeds out. Locals say you can see the bloody outline when the rock gets wet. Neighbors find remains of her 2 young children. They can't prove anything. Infant death was common back then. Years later, on her deathbed, she confesses to killing the babies. She stabbed them in their soft spot and threw their bodies to the hogs. They said she begged for water in death cause she could feel the flames of hell. Glad Grandma didn't tell me the story as a kid.
There was a mining disaster in my hometown. They laid the bodies out in the local elementary school gym to identify them. I've heard a few stories about that. A former gym teacher is a family friend and could hear footsteps all time when no one else was there. Had a cousin who saw a headless man in miner's clothes walk through a wall when she was in the hallway by herself. Just a general sense of unease from everyone. From what I gather, body identification was pretty rough. A lot of them had their faces destroyed.
Man, Buffalo Creek.
No, but not too far off. There's a bunch of stuff from the area around the Cold War's time. Seems like every town has a mine disaster. Bloody Harlan has a bunch, but I'm not from there, so I only know one. Miners are trying to unionize. Coal execs catch wind and send Pinkerton to nip it. Pinkerton gun thugs find the main dude trying to unionize and decide to make an example. Barge into his house on the coal camp in the middle of night. March his wife, daughter, and him out at gunpoint. Take him to the top of the mountain where no one can intervene. Take turns on his wife and daughter while he's tied up. Take their heads off and toss them down the hill when they're done. They take the man and leave him in the middle of town with his guts hanging out to die slow. Now if you drive down that mountain at night, they say you can see a headless little girl standing at the side of the road like she's waiting for something.
There's a surprising amount of stories about male witches in the area. I guess back in the day it wasn't just associated with women. Anyway, there's a legend about how you were able to become one if you're a man. For 3 nights in a row you must walk to the top of the nearest mountain at 3 a.m. Curse God at the top of your lungs 3 times. Shoot a gun in the air towards the heavens. If you do this for 3 nights in a row, on the 3rd night it will start storming out of nowhere. Some say it will rain blood. That's how you know it took. If it works, you'll be granted all sorts of special powers, but you'll go insane. Sounds like some heavy metal bullshit, but I remember seeing an old ass book about it when I was a middle schooler. The 19th century was wild.
I remember my grandpa telling me about a group of warlocks who had come to a town he lived in New Mexico when he was a teenager in the 50s. They weren't the Levan Satanist type, or really Satanists at all. He talked about them going to church, and that's actually where they did their magic. They'd speak in tongues and make the lights flicker, and claimed they were doing something involving angels. Gramps said he always had a bad feeling about them, and they skipped town all of a sudden a few weeks after they arrived. Turns out 2 of them got busted for pot, and the other attacked a 16-year-old and allegedly tried to drink her blood, according to her account. It said that small town ablaze, but the story never traveled far.
Interesting. The speaking tongues stuff almost sounds like holiness, Pentecostal influence, which was pretty popular at the time. The rest of the stuff Ike. Cultish beatniks maybe. Crazy they never got picked up after all that. I've never been to New Mexico, but I imagine they couldn't have gone far. By the way, if you ever want to experience the closest thing to religious ecstasy that we have in the West, visit a holiness Pentecostal church. I didn't even believe it and felt like I was going into a trance-like state.
Gramps wasn't clear about if they were arrested or not. The most he remembers is that they skipped, or at least tried to, town after word got out. They could have been some branch of Pentecostals, although he described them as wearing these very ceremonial and almost stereotypical white robes, fashioned themselves as New Age prophets or monks or whatever. Also should mention, only just remembered this, he described them as having this symbol on their robes. From what I remember, it was something like the Ouroboros with a cross in the center. I've tried Googling about any religious movement with a symbol along those lines, but I've gotten nothing. So I assume it must have been something really, really local, small scale.
Imagine a time where people could just blow into town like that and just leave without a trace. I've heard stories about carnivals doing that back in the 40s. My grandpa said when he was little there'd just be a bunch of tents that would randomly be set up and everyone would go. He specifically remembers seeing some guy bite the head off a chicken. Imagine being the poor carny stuck with that job. Scary how easy it was to disappear.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Legends of the Steeps. Okay. Felt like there was something on my lip. I guess my whiskers are tangled up in a weird way. Let's try Unearthly Unnerving. Lives you too, honey kitty.
Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
I've often had the uncanny valley explained away to me by my peers online and elsewhere as stemming from a natural response to make us avoid copulating with corpses and those who suffer from severe diseases. But I work as a mortician, and I know this is rather blatantly not true, and even showing them photos of lifeless bodies, even those heavily decomposed, desiccated, and otherwise, it doesn't elicit the uncanny valley response, yet they still staunchly push the hypothesis that it stems from the dead and the sick. I think I've uncovered something, but perhaps it's more a confirmation of what has been collective knowledge for years. I'm breaking the NDA on this one, but better to die getting sued for being a whistleblower than live with an ungodly secret. I was employed, by the US government no less, to decipher what could have possibly afflicted both a troop of 3 soldiers who returned home from the Middle East in body bags, along with a supposed ISIS fighter who they took with them. The lab I was stationed in was separate from my usual place of work, and it was soundproofed very firmly, to the degree you couldn't hear someone screaming their lungs out if you were outside the room, even with your ear pressed firmly against the door. The bodies of the soldiers were deformed, and they had been stripped of their fatigues. They looked like their flesh had been molded like putty, like something had gripped and pulled at their bodies and shaped them into these abnormal shapes. Dissection revealed numerous organs contained within the flesh, all serving seemingly no purpose, but continuing to pump and move even though the rest of the body was dead. The only discernible cause for death I could find was their heart giving out, presumably from the stress inflicted on their body by this process. I dread to imagine how painful it must have been to experience firsthand. The body of the ISIS fighter had set into me a carnal, primordial dread the second I had laid eyes upon it, or more specifically its face. Its skin was puffy, but at the same time its form was gaunt and pale. I could see the contours of the skull and the ribs and other bones just from glancing at its form, yet it clearly possessed fat and muscle, just also tightly conformed to the bone that the figure was skeletal, yet resembled nothing like a human, even one incredibly anorexic. I had great difficulty slicing into the flesh for the dissection. The skin looked so smooth and almost rubbery, but had a coarse, callous texture. It possessed double the organs of a human being. 2 hearts, 4 lungs, several stomachs, kidneys, and livers, and strangely of all an engorged appendix. Or what would be an appendix in a human body. I was certain that whatever I was dealing with was not human, and the existence of this appendix is what leads me to believe this even more so than everything else. It throbbed softly as I slowly removed it from the creature to closer examine, but it was stuck, bound to the flesh with a thin wire strand of flesh. I took my sharpest scalpel and still had to see with all the force I could to get it to snap. And the second I had, whatever was so terrifying about this creature to me ceased. A feeling of anxiety so intense I could vomit at any second despite how jaded I was had left me. And the creature's form seemed to change quite extensively. The fat, muscle, and other tissue that had been bound so closely to the skeleton seemed to relax itself, filling out a more realistic human form. At the same time, the additional organs quickly withered, rotting rapidly despite the conditions I had stored them in. They were stored safely in a freezer, yet they rotted like they had been left in the smoldering sun. The appendix of this creature was, upon closer inspection, a brain or some type of other gray matter enclosed in a fleshy sac. Slicing it open revealed soft, brain-like grooves, albeit insanely plentiful. Far more wrinkled than a human brain could ever possibly be. I was compelled to dissect the skull next, to study and possibly deviations in regards to the brain of this creature, and upon even greater difficulty getting the skull open, I was denied my curiosity. If this creature had a brain, it would have withered rapidly, being no bigger than a pill of melatonin. The only thing that had signified that it was a brain to me was the existence of small wrinkles and the texture of it. The government was pleased with my results, I must guess. I was paid a healthy amount and offered new housing on federal land. I denied, as I didn't want to move away from my family in my hometown. Yet they kept insisting. Constantly for the past 3 months I've received letter after letter in the mail, email after email, all insisting I move. At first they were friendly, but quickly they became violent and demanding. I suppose I might get a CIA reward for excellence in journalism soon, but I know no news service worth its salt would listen to my story. Believe me or not, X, I'll leave it up to you.
Cult theory really makes sense to me. I'm terrible at green text, but here you go. Move into luxury apartment after life of living in slums and shitty houses. Moving in said apartment with wealthy family GF that has helped me get life together. Mid-sized building in very large city. It used to be a union club building they have converted into apartments, but it stood abandoned for years and became a haven for homeless and drug activities. Has a pool on the 13th floor. Actually lists 13th floor on elevator and everything. Spooky photos from the 40s all around the building to show the before and after of the restoration, including a Shining-esque photo of everyone in the ballroom. All of this said, the restoration and apartment amenities are really nice and I feel very safe in the building. I genuinely trust in my intuition and I've never gotten a bad feeling about the place despite everything I've listed above. First day in new apartment, go to bed late because unpacking. Building is the quietest place I've ever lived despite being in a big city. Mattress on floor with GF upstairs. Hear things knocking over just as I'm falling asleep, then hear glass shatter. Gut reaction is that our cat is knocking things over, but when I sit up I see him sleeping in the bathroom. Go downstairs to investigate. Nothing is out of place. Go back to bed upstairs. Wake up to GF yelling at the cat. Go downstairs and the glass I drank water out of is shattered on the floor and a bunch of GF's paint tubes are all over the floor. Help her clean up and don't think much of it. Later in week. House is set up now including chairs at the table, bed, etc. Wake up suddenly with the same feeling as before but don't feel anything. Feel compelled to go downstairs. Turn the corner at bottom of the staircase and an old woman is sitting at the table with her back turned to me. Freeze not out of fear but like I'm seeing something I shouldn't. I can't really explain the feeling. Like hearing a private conversation you shouldn't. She's got messy hair and is wearing a nightgown. Get an uneasy feeling as I start to approach like I'm going to go around to see her face and she's going to look like the Grudge or something. Calm my nerves and walk around her to the other side of the table. She's staring ahead but glances at me and looks me in the eyes with a polite smile, like one you give a waiter checking on your table. Again, I feel like I'm interrupting. On autopilot and awkwardness, I go to drink a glass of water. She's still staring at the other chairs. I get an overwhelming wave of tiredness. I set down the glass on the table as I try to brace myself and wrench my eyes open and get a look at her. She ignores me and I don't remember anything else but waking up the next morning. Wake up and rush downstairs. Glass is intact at the table and nothing is out of place. I don't know why, but I felt like she was visiting. I don't know what either of my grandmothers. Both died long before I was born. Looked like so it's possible it was one of them. One of the oddest interactions, and I haven't had an inkling of an uneasy feeling about this place since.
My grandparents lived in an old farmhouse they'd rented for like 30 years. I grew up hearing ghost stories all my life about it, and had my own experience there too. Apparently the farmer that owned it died in it, and didn't like people there. He obviously wasn't harmful or anything, just messed with people who were there as best as his ghostly self could. My dad told me a story about how when he was a kid there he was with a friend playing upstairs, waiting for their brother to get home off the bus. They heard him run up the stairs, but never saw him, looked all around. The third time this happened, as they were looking, the bus pulled up and out popped his brother. My step-grandma moved in years after that. She is a very spiritual, Christian woman, and apparently when she first moved in with my grandpa the ghost went a little nuts. I'm not sure exactly what happened to her, but she managed to tell it they were there to take care of the house, would keep it safe, etc., and it went pretty quiet. For a time while I was in college I lived there. All of the friends I've ever brought there could definitely tell there was something else there. The place had a vibe about it. One night I wanted to play some games on the big TV downstairs, so I grabbed my PS3 and started to quietly make my way down. Now both my grandparents were asleep in a room across the hall. I wanted to play and didn't want to be interrupted, so I didn't want to wake them. This was an old farmhouse, and I wasn't yet familiar with where all the floorboard squeaks were, so I went extremely slow. I would take one soft step and wait and listen. Sure enough, every time I heard both of my grandparents' distinct snores. I went through that elaborate description of my creeping around because, as I almost made it to the steps down after doing this for about 10 steps, I heard a voice I didn't recognize from right behind my head whisper goodnight and on. Needless to say, I immediately tossed my precious PS3 on my bed and booked it out of the house to stay with my GF for the night. My grandma had a priest bless the house once a month after that, and there weren't any other problems.
Be me. Little kid. At sleepover with friend. Chilling in his room in the middle of the night playing PS2. Closet door creaks open. Marker flies across the room and hits the wall. We both freak out. Couldn't sleep that night because every time I closed my eyes I could feel something grabbing my face. Ever since then been terrified of ghosts. Learn from TV that you can banish ghosts. Try to learn how by checking out books at my library, but none of the librarians take me seriously. One of them even suggests my mom take me to church, suggesting there was something wrong with me. Don't care.
Bitch.
Go to bookstore and buy the Lesser Key of Solomon because I saw it on the library.
Your son needs Jesus. No, I'm trying to banish ghosts. My house is full of ghosts. Help me banish them. What you need is Jesus. Fucking hell.
Cataloged under paranormal. Read, nothing useful. Check out some books on shamanism.
You're
necromancy,
looking so pretty.
Attempt ritual to summon murmur. It doesn't work. Eventually figure out how to draw a magic circle to banish ghosts. Every time I hear a bump in the house I whip out the magic circle and say my little chant and boom, no more noise. Started going around to different areas like abandoned houses and banishing ghosts. Get a really nasty geist that follows me home. Still hasn't left. Can't banish it. Pray to murmur, no help. Seriously, murmur is the most worthless piece of shit. I don't even know why I try. Still here. 25 years old now. Stopped banishing ghosts. Pretty sure that the geist is still haunting me. I'm pretty sure this thing is the one misplacing my work gloves. Every time I get a side job and I go to get my work gloves, they are gone. Every time. I've gone through 4 pairs in the last year.
The most memorable one when I was maybe 5 was waking up in the middle of the night and seeing an older man in my room staring out the window. He was wearing a zigzag patterned sweater. My father went through some clothing left in the house from the landlord's father, who had died decades prior, and found the exact sweater. I had a little children's book that played music when you pressed different buttons, maybe 5 or 6 songs like Old MacDonald Had a Farm and such. One time in the middle of the night I woke up to the book playing a song I had never heard before. I had action figures of different brands and types that made noise when you pressed a button. In the middle of the day, most if not all of them started to make noise and wouldn't stop, repeating over and over. My parents were around for that and they had to put them in the guest bathroom we rarely used until their batteries died. I had seen green hands on 2 separate occasions. The first time it was at night. I was sitting on the couch that was in the middle of the living room, not pressed against a wall, and I saw a monstrous-looking hand with fairly long black nails and was overall grotesque. The other hand looked fairly normal and was near the doorknob in my bedroom in the middle of the night. My father claimed to have seen this hand on a different night. I eventually refused to sleep in that room since most of the occurrences happened there. I slept on the pull-out bed in the living room for years. One time in the middle of the night I heard a car drive into our driveway. I could hear it rolling on the gravel and even the car door open and close. I couldn't see the car and there were no lights and nobody came to the door. There were several other things that happened, but those stick out the most, and the rest are very fuzzy memories, as I lived there between 4 and 11 years of age.
Can you describe what the hands were doing?
The grotesque one seemed like it was reaching for me. Only the light of our fireplace was going, and when I turned behind myself to see it, it did not vanish. It reeled back into the darkness. I had vision of the hand for about 2 seconds, so more than a glance. The second hand looked completely different and was completely motionless. I think it was on my dresser that was right next to the doorknob, but it didn't move. If I remember correctly, this hand faded away, still motionless, over a period of maybe 5 or so seconds. The 2 hands seemed completely different, and the first one that seemed to reach for me felt much more malevolent.
Got a short happening to share. Be me, working at a small repair shop. Very rural area. The nearest civilization is a few hillbillies living in glorified crack houses a short distance from where I work. Guy comes in real late at night. He's clearly from a more urban area and seems really fidgety. Asks me to take a look at his car. According to him, he parked by the side of the road briefly to check his text messages and take a quick piss. When he got back into his car, he said it felt like his tires were slashed, and the engine took 5 or so times to start. I look at the tires first, and sure enough they were slashed, but they weren't knife marks or something mundane, like the slashes that you'd get from driving over sharp rocks or something. Looked like a bear tore into them. I start getting ready to change the guy's tires, pop the hood to see if there's anything wrong with the engine. The entire body of what I think is a newborn baby deer is crammed under the hood. Feel my heart sink to my asshole as I turn to the guy, pale as a sheet. He turns pale too, and walks on over to see what's going on with his engine. Nearly pukes at the sight. I tell him I'll do my best to get the poor thing out, and he should stay in here just in case. While I'm working on dislodging the dead newborn deer, I hear probably 2 or 3 people in trucks pull up outside the repair shop. Go from sweating bullets to sweating mortar shells. Try to shrug it off, thinking it might just be some of the hillbillies parking nearby because of the sheets. Door to the garage starts banging really loud. Sound like knives are being scraped against it. Guy ducks, immediately hiding underneath a table. Smart move on his part. I try to slowly shimmy into the front of the store. Owner has a shotgun in a big case underneath the counter for robberies. Really bright lights are shining in through the windows at the front. Crawl on my belly to the counter. The shotgun is gone. Missing from its case. Shitting bricks at this point. Hear the garage door get wrenched open, the metal practically screaming. Screw this shit, I'm not dying for an out-of-towner. Crouch under the counter, gripping my pocket knife. Hear the guy scream bloody murder.
Bloody
Hear
murder!
something large and metal, probably his car, get drug out of the garage. What the? Lights cease. Screaming cease. Tension ceases. Poke my head up over the counter, trying to look through one of the windows near the front to the parking lot. Empty, nothing to be seen. Get up and carefully walk back to the garage. Massive bloody smear leading from where the guy had hid to the door. Dead deer is gone. Call the police, they don't come until morning. Sheriff is shooken up from the get-go. My face when this shit is immediately hushed up, and the local police department hires a new sheriff a few days later.
Oh shit.
Dime, 8-year-old lad whose family just had plush new carpet installed in the living room. Love the friction burn eye.
It was like the urban guy, like an escaped soul from hell. And like the supposed rednecks who like come in like friggin' big trucks with huge spotlights and whatever, where like demons come to drag him back. That'd be fucking wild. It reminds me of this celebrity spooky story. I can't remember which celebrity it was, but he was telling a story about his dead brother, and in his story, I guess his brother had passed away recently, and he was in bed, just sleeping next to his wife, and his phone starts ringing. So he picks up his phone, he answers it, and he hears this familiar voice on the other end, like calling out to him. And turns out it's his brother's voice. And he's like kind of weirded out because, you know, he, like his brother passed away, dead, buried, and everything. And like his brother is on the phone, like asking for help, like saying that he escaped. Like, escaped what? And like his brother like keeps saying like he escaped, they're coming to get him, like he's like trying to call, like trying to call out for help. And I guess he's like at some sort of like payphone somewhere, and he's trying to like figure out the location. So like the celebrity is like trying to like pinpoint like where his brother might be at. But eventually like the phone call gets like really staticky and then disconnects or something like that. Somehow the phone call ends and he wasn't able to like ascertain like where his brother might have been. But the notion is just kind of like spooky. I was like, how was his brother able to like call from the afterlife and like say that he escaped from some place that was like evil or wicked, and like trying to like get the point across that like he's being hunted down by these people who are trying to take him back to where he escaped from. I don't know, it's just like, it's a spooky notion. Like what if like his brother was able to like escape the clutches of hell or whatever through some, I don't know, like say a portal, and come back into the realm, like the physical realm of the living, and make a desperate phone call before the freaking demons of hell burst through the same portal he escaped out of and just dragged him back. It was fucking wild. It's like spooky if you allow yourself to just kind of like sink into that notion.
I get from pushing my neck up and down against the carpet bristles for some reason. Literally stay up late to play with carpet. Slip out of the bedroom and down the hall to mess around in the carpet after midnight. Lay down on my back, push myself with my feet up and down so it feels like I'm sliding around the floor. I feel something start pulling me towards the kitchen, but I don't freak out for some reason. Pitch black, can't turn the lights on for fear of waking and warm, comforting energy as I... Weirdly, I have to get pulled away from the living room. Still have not seen whatever I'm playing with. Still fun, with that strange comforting numbness clouding my brain every time we play. Becomes routine. The last night I did this,
Okay, this will probably be the last video. I'll probably have to like shut down because my KBS rate is really going through some issues. It's going up and down. So just as well, because like again, I've almost streamed for like 2 hours. It's been like an hour and 40 minutes. So we'll let this video play through, get to the end of it, and then we'll just call it done for this current stream.
was dragged around in a circle twice before I got wrenched forward so hard that I flew off the ground. Realize I'm being pulled in the direction of the garage door. Look up, and for the first time I get a glimpse at my playmate. I only see two gray eyes, looked like they were made out of glow-in-the-dark material. Start getting tugged even more violently in the direction of the garage. Sit up and start running, the weird feeling of safety replaced with rage, not my own. I woke up with claw marks on my ankles, never played again. I only saw him one more time in my doorway. He was upset I didn't want to play.
I have one, though it's not really scary, just a curious couple of things I've experienced during these last years. Back in early 2020 I had a dream where me and one of my cousins were on a crowded bus. Cousin and me were talking about something I can't remember until the bus stops. I get off, but he stays on the bus and waves me goodbye. Wake up, don't think too much about the dream, and go on with my day as normal. Couple hours later got a call from another one of my cousins. She told me the cousin I dreamt of the previous night took his life that morning. Long story short, his wife left him, went to live with another man, and didn't let him see their 1-month-old son. He tried to see his son again the night before. Apparently things got ugly. She called the cops and promised she'd call her lawyers to make sure he'd never get close to them again. This was around the Rona lockdown, so he was probably affected by that too. I'm still confused about the dream to this day. We never knew the exact hour he did the deed, so I'm not sure if it was a premonitory dream or if he wanted to say goodbye to me for the last time. And this leads into my second story. Because of that incident, I became invested in dreams, dream interpretation, lucid dreaming, and all that jazz. Used to lucid dream all the time when I was young. Had full control of my dreams and imagined myself hanging out with my favorite cartoon characters, fighting monsters with my favorite heroes, fondling Raven's butt, etc. You know, normal kid stuff.
Fucking
Decided
nice. Fondling Raven's butt. Sweet. We all know Raven. Raven from Teen Titans. Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah. Anyway.
Try lucid dreaming again, though for more introspective reasons this time. Read that one of the most effective ways to start with lucid dreaming was to make a reality check. Basically a gesture or phrase or whatever that you have to repeat many times a day. Put my hand in front of my face, twist it for a bit, close and open my fingers twice, and finally say I'm awake. That's the check I ended up going with. It works on night 1. Except it didn't work quite right. I was aware in the dream, but I wasn't the one in control of it. Could see myself walking down a street I go through practically every day, though not in first person, but rather from a side. From my perspective, I could see besides myself, a fence, and behind it a clearing that had a small soccer field with some steps surrounding them in the middle of it. Exactly what I'd see in real life if I were there. Then me, or the me from my dreams I should say, performed the reality check I described, but without the phrase at the end. When it was over, the skies turned orange and the grass and leaves turned sky blue. The fences disappeared and the field was replaced with a small hill. This hill was around that place IRL, but it certainly wasn't there, nor should it be visible from the place I was standing in. The me in my dreams does the reality check again. Everything goes back to normal, and he smiles before saying it works. He then goes on his way like nothing happened. Couldn't tell you about the rest of the dream because I kept trying to rationalize what had happened until I woke up. Spooked enough by this experience to never consider trying to lucid dream again. Every now and then I have similar dreams to that one, though more grounded than that one. Except for the one with the flesh room that unleashed zombies on Not Me, or the one where a tornado forced Not Me to stay on a friend's house and he ended up screwing his friend's mom. But those stories aren't as interesting as they might seem. They're mostly about other me doing mundane things while I'm just there spectating. Funny thing is that as mundane as everything is, I still find it quite unsettling. Nothing weird happens per se, but the locations are familiar yet different. Like colors or the landscape being wrong, house or business being in a different spot that in real life or straight up doesn't exist. Which results in not me going to a dream knockoff version of them. One example I always remember is that of a street that, in real life, has a row of perfectly spaced trees on each side, a beautiful sight despite its mundanity. That in one of these dreams was turned into a dirt road with willows on each side so closely packed together they form a seemingly impenetrable barrier, with old wooden lamp posts that barely illuminate the road. It looked scary, but it was also cool as hell. That's why it always comes to mind. None of the other me's seemed aware of my presence, which is a huge relief to me despite thinking this is just my imagination running wild. Can't discuss this with my friends because apparently a Marvel movie recently had a plot where dreams are images of the multiverse or something, so every time I bring one of my dreams up they laugh and say it's just that. And that's it. Again, not scary, but I hope you had fun reading about these dreams of mine.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Cool. All right, that'll be it for now. Looks like the stream is behaving again, but you know, it's been almost another 2 hours. I'm going to see if I can do something for dinner. I don't think my family is back yet, but I'll go next door, maybe scrounge up a snack or something. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. Thanks to all those who participated in chat. It's always awesome interacting with all of you. As always is my lovely moderator, Melody, and Dasco Draws is here. Who else is here? Oh, I can't see. Anyway, to all those lurkers who are watching and to those who are watching later, if you liked what you saw, please like, comment, share, subscribe, ring that notification bell. And if you really enjoyed my stuff, please feel free to donate. The donation link is in the description section below. It'll take you to my Ko-fi page, and there you can donate any dollar amount. But either one of those options would be very much appreciated. So, until next time, this has been Johnston Blackhorse, the one and only. And I shall check y'all later. Sweet. Bye.